Hello, hello. We're going to give folks just a couple minutes to roll in. Doug, good to see you.
Good seeing you.
How's the weather there?
Oh, it's gorgeous today. It's about 75 degrees, sun shining.
It's great. Love to hear it. We have some much needed rain, but last night, it's funny is, we have our house and we have this part of our house where the roof goes and it hits kind of a piece that they added onto the house, which is kind of dumb. And so then the water's got to hit that and then go down and then it goes off. So we're having the roof modified slightly to where the rain runs off properly, and we don't have to worry about it coming in because we had a small leak at one point. Well, they started working on it yesterday. It started raining, and you can probably guess what happens next. Let me show you. This is so bad. This is water pouring into our house, and that's Sweet Kara. Literally, it's like somebody has a hose on coming out of our ceiling.
Wow.
It was so stressful last night. So we were up most of the night, trying to figure out what to do.
Well,
So
and that messes up your ceilings and everything.
our floors are buckling and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. So we thought we were being so wise, but keep telling myself one step forward. This is one step backwards, two step forwards. Kind of felt like two steps backwards, but we're making progress.
Right.
Yeah. So long night last night here in Dallas.
Well, I hope we get some of the rain. We're really, really dry here.
We are way under and our lakes are low
Yeah.
here. All right, we're 3 minutes after. I think we're probably safe to jump in and get started. Well, welcome, Touchpoint friends. We're glad that you're here. This is a really important webinar. I'm so glad you joined. I'm so glad you're here. When I learned about what we're talking about today a number of years ago, and I thought to myself, that makes so much sense. More churches should do that. More people should be smart and plan for the future. And I was with a couple of Doug's colleagues, I guess it was a year ago, and we were talking, and I'm a little slow sometimes, but it occurred to me that actually, I'm going to press pause on my story real quick. I'm going to tell you my story, but before I do, I'll set the stage for our time together. We've got 45 minutes carved out. I think that we're going to use about half of it, and then we're going to jump into some Q&A. So be thinking about your questions. Our last slide, we're going to just throw up a thing that says questions. You can type them into the Q&A button. So nothing's off limits. We would love to hear your questions. But I think that's it on housekeeping, time frame, all of that. So back to our story. So I was talking with my friend who's was at this conference with me. I think we were at maybe the XP Metro conference, and he asked me kind of, did we have a will and stuff? And I said, of course we have a will. We did that when we had kids, and now we revised it one time after our kids were a little bit older. And I felt like we were on top of it until it occurred to me that if Kara and I died, our kids would be taken care of, but none of our, of course, we're going to support our church unless we die. And we wouldn't, even though we have a heart to support our church, we weren't supporting our church at all. And so we were talking, and my friend at PhilanthroCorp said, hey, do you want to experience what this is like yourself and go through our program? Because I started thinking about recommending it to our partner churches. We vet our partners pretty closely to make sure that we're making recommendations that we stand behind. So I'll share with you the result of a few months of work. These are our new estate planning documents. And I shared this at Summit. So some of you might have heard at Summit a little bit about this. Maybe TMI, but if it encourages you or if it advances a single person's decision or a church's interest, then that's my heart and my objective. Karen and I went from not including our church in any of our estate planning, even though we had a heart to do it, to treating our philanthropic priorities, which most of that is our church. I think we had them in at 75% of our philanthropic priorities as a fourth child. So we have 3 kids. So what we're doing is we're kind of taking what we plan and we're acting like we have 4 kids. And so we identified our church and 2 other Christian nonprofits that we care deeply about. And through the help of PhilanthroCorp and their planning, I feel great that we have minimized our taxes, that we've maximized our ability to make sure that our kids and our priorities with our church and others are taken care of. So first of all, I want to say, Doug, to you and your team, thank you for taking care of Kara and me. We're super grateful. I'm glad that you encouraged us to take action, because you don't think it's going to happen. I literally got a text from my wife about an hour ago saying that the pastor of the church that I became a believer in, a first generation Christian in, who's about my age, passed away last night in his sleep. So you never know, our days are numbered. So you never know exactly what that means. And we don't plan for it, but we should plan for it. So with that, Doug, thank you for joining us. Doug serves on the team at PhilanthroCorp. He brings a wealth of experience both in the church and with PhilanthroCorp. He was a senior pastor for 46 years with 2 different church bodies. And I hope that you'll share a little bit of your experience and stories from that, because you've shared them with me and I think they're helpful and meaningful. But with that, I will be quiet and turn the microphone over to somebody who knows much more about this than I do. So Doug, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Yes, I had the privilege of pastoring 2 churches. My first church, I was there 12 years. And my last church, I was there for 44 years. When we talk about legacy giving, planning for the future, those kind of things, I had never heard about that until 2 years prior to retirement. And when I heard about it, I literally left the room where I was in the meeting listening to these things, and I was very angry. And I was angry at the fact that, no one had taught me as a pastor that I should be doing this with my church. No one had taught me that. And then I realized that in 44 years, only 2 families had left a legacy gift to the church, even though I had preached the funeral of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of saints of God down through the years. So I came home and not knowing what to do or how to do it, but I came home, I put together a group of men that I trusted financially, and we began the research of what to do. And that's when I met PhilanthroCorp. And then PhilanthroCorp came alongside of us. And so basically the last year and a half prior to retiring, we offered legacy giving to our church. And we had like $3.8 million in gifts, legacy gifts, future gifts left for our church. Now, here's what's incredible about that. We went through unbelievable building programs. I mean, we were almost constantly in a building program in my last church. And we had every year a missions emphasis. And so I had a building program in the spring and a mission emphasis in the fall. And we raised millions and millions of dollars for missions and millions of dollars to build buildings. I never did any one of these that I didn't have someone angry, somebody mad, or somebody want to quit the church. But when I offered legacy giving, it was the first time ever that I had nothing but people coming to me and saying, "Thank you, Pastor, for helping us. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for helping my family." And it was incredible. And the amount of money just blows you away that people are willing to give. So it's a great, great thing. Well, what I'm going to give to you now in just the next few minutes is a little overview of what I learned during that 6 months trying to get all of this together. First of all, Boston College did a study, And they said from year 1998 through 2053 that there would be a transfer of wealth of $59 trillion. That's trillion. Now that they project now that is $70 trillion. In other words, the greatest transfer of wealth in human history is happening while we're on this webinar. The next thing I want you to see is why people give. People give because they believe in your mission. People give because they believe in your leadership. And people give because they believe you have a strong, secure financial future. The idea that people will give to a sinking ship, just not going to happen. I know as a young preacher, I can't tell you how many times I foolishly said to the church, we need to take a good offering. We need this to happen because, we're behind here, behind there, which is the wrong motivation. But the truth is people give to what they believe has a strong financial future as well. And then the next thing I want you to see is that 70% of our population does not have a current will. Now, some say 75, but 70 to 75% of our current population does not, our population does not have a current will. Now, the way I looked at that when I began to learn it would be like my Sunday morning crowd, that 70% of those sitting there to listen to me preach did not have a will. And that means there's a great need in our congregation. This is not just something I'm doing because I want to make sure we have the finances we need for the future, but our people had a great need. And then the next thing I want you to see is that we have found at PhilanthroCorp, when we work with the most committed givers of a church or most committed givers of an organization, Christian organization, that have a will, that only 1 out of 40 of those have included the Lord's work. Sort of like, Ross, what you said, you guys had a will, but you had not included the Lord's work. Now, the question that comes immediately to my mind is simply this. Why? Why would that happen? Well, I learned this by being with an attorney right before COVID, and we were meeting with a group of elders in a Baptist church. And this attorney was a trained attorney to do estate planning. And he told the men that he had graduated from the University of Alabama, and that he had done hundreds and hundreds of wills, but only one time did he ever remember that anyone gave anything to the Lord's work. And he said there was a little old lady that just demanded that he put something from her will to her church. And then he looked at those elders, and I thought this was really humbling. He looked at them and he said, "Was that because I didn't love God like I love him now?" And he said, "No, I love God just like I love him now." But he said, "I was taught from a secular worldview." We were not taught when we do estate planning to think about giving to the Lord and that the Lord owns it all. And I just thought that was incredible. But what we do find, and I'll share this again, but what we do find once we share with those 1 out of 40 that have a will but nothing for the Lord in it, that 39 out of 40 will include a gift to the Lord. Now, I want to share with you a couple of numbers here, the number 9 and the number 91. This is where the conviction came to me, was 9% of our wealth is our paychecks. Now, with the help of Dave Ramsey and so many other great preachers and writers, I had taught our people to be very, very generous with the 9%. But what carried such a heavy load on my heart was 91% of our wealth is our accumulated wealth. And it was very evident when I had only 2 people in 44 years leave a gift to the church that I had not taught how to handle the 91%. And that burdened me, because I want, when our people stand before the Lord, I want them to hear the Lord say, "Well done." And I had taught our people that God owns it all, but I'd only taught them how to manage the 9% and not how to manage the 91% as well. And like I said, the reality of that was hundreds and hundreds of funerals of saints of God and only 2 gifts left for the church. Then I learned something else that was real important. I learned that 1.8 million nonprofits, and I want you to look at this now, 1.8 million nonprofits are in the United States, and they are competing for the 9%. Most of those nonprofits are competing for the 9% that I was competing for as a pastor, and never realizing that very few are competing for the 91%. In other words, the greatest way I know to illustrate that is like fishing. Can you imagine a pond and there's 1.8 million people throwing their line in that pond to catch fish? Can you imagine how they're tangling their lines together and what a chaotic thing it is? But then here's a great big ocean out there, and very few people have thrown their line into that ocean. And I want to say to you, all of you that are listening right now, as you offer estate planning, legacy giving to your people, you're showing them how to manage the 91%, because we do want them to hear the Lord say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." And they want to know that they have managed it well. Well, there's 3 areas that people give in, and this is where PhilanthroCorp really, really shines. And I want you to look at the 3 areas people give to, okay? If you look at the next slide, it's we give to our families, and we love them, and we give to ministries that we love, and we give to the IRS that we do not love. Well, let's talk about giving to families that we love. There's a right way and a wrong way to give to your family. They tell us right now, studies have shown that the average inheritance is wasted as quickly as the person who wins the lottery. And so, just giving money to your family is not always a very wise thing to do. And how do we give it to them? How do we do it in such a way that we bless them when we don't hurt them? We don't want to hinder them having to have the faith in God that we have, but we want to bless them. And PhilanthroCorp, we specialize in helping you know how to give to your families. I can't tell you what a blessing they were to me, simply because Katie and I, God blessed us to have 2 children, a son and a daughter. And our son at 29 went to heaven. And he had a small child, had gone through a divorce, and we raised that child as our own. And my daughter, she had 3 children, has 3 children. And so, I mean, we just didn't have everything exactly right. How do I give? How do I give to my daughter? How do I give to my grandchildren? What do I do? And I promise you, PhilanthroCorp came in and they helped us figure out a way to do it that I still rejoice over. And if we have time, I'll talk more about that. But then when we give to the ministries that we love, it's a no-brainer. We would come in and work with your church, and we would work with your most committed. And your most committed have been giving for many for years and years, and some maybe for months, but they've been giving faithfully the tithe and the offering. And when we share with them, the 91% belongs to the Lord too. It's just like what Ross did. It's natural. Some folks give a tithe. I worked with a young man, a newlywed, the other day, and putting his together. And no question at all, they wanted to tithe on it. In his case, they made an extra child. But there's so many ways that you can give. And then we also specialize in helping you avoid taxes. I don't know anyone that wants to give taxes. We want to avoid them. And we show how you can avoid taxes and how that you can give in the very best ways to your families and to your ministries. And then I want to talk now about PhilanthroCorp, because we began in 1997. And as I said, we literally specialize in how to give to your family and how to give back to the Lord and how to avoid the taxes. But I want you to know that we have helped since 1997. We have helped churches and Christian ministries raise over $4 billion in legacy giving. I mean, that's just incredible, what we've been able to do. And we can do the same for you. One of the things that, if you're listening now, and you may want to write this down, our average ROI right now is 40 to 1. Now, I would sure love to be able to have in my retirement a 40 to 1, but we're able to do the 40 to 1. And that's our average right now. Our average gift in working with your most committed is $200,000. So as we come in with an organization and we help them to know how to help their people, then we are going to help them reach their most committed. And then we not only help them in reaching their most committed, we also help them in reaching those young couples. And we have just recently rolled out a new program where we can come in with a young couple, and many of them, the only thing they have is children and term life insurance. But we help them have a will that's great and will suffice them as they continue growing their family. And that is at no cost to the church. And so you're able to not only help that most committed who have accumulated wealth, you're able also to help these young couples. And that's very, very important. Now, I said I would come back to this, and that's the slide on 1 out of 40 and 39 out of 40. I want to say that again. Only 1 out of 40 most committed, I said it a moment ago, that have a will, have included the Lord's work. But once we work with them and once we help them, we have 39 out of 40 of them that are willing to put the Lord's work. And again, like I said a moment ago, it's only natural. Now, here's what we do. We become the planned giving department for legacy gifts. Now, you say, what does that mean? Well, there may be some pastors here, but you may just be on the staff. And I can say to you, as a senior pastor for 46 years, I don't know of any pastor looking for anything else to be on his plate. He's got about all he can say grace over. And so what we do is we come alongside and we work with, it could be your financial secretary, but we just need one of your secretaries to help us with numbers, to help us with mailings. And then we do the work for you. For an example, if we're going to send out a mailing, we will send you a sample of what that mailing needs to say. And all you have to do is just word it where it sounds like it's coming from your church. We give you our web pages that go right in and look like you've been doing this for 20 years. We just take all the hard work out of it. And then the leadership of the church, the main thing you will do is just become a cheerleader. And we will do the hard work. Now, here's why it's so successful, though. Number one, people, they love our churches, but they're not interested in the pastor or certain people on staff or elders knowing their worth. They want, that's something that's very private. And so when they work with us from the outside, representing you, the church, then they know that that's kept private. And the second thing that makes it work for us is that we do the ask. You know, I shared earlier how that we'd had many building funds and mission funds, and, you know, and I'm doing the ask there. And that's probably what causes people to get angry. But when we help people with their estate planning, we do the ask, but we do it in such a way there's no offense to it, because it's not like we ask them, will you give? We just show them, here's what you can do. You can give back to the Lord and avoid taxes. And when you do, it's just natural that's what they want to do. They want to give back. So we become your planned giving department for legacy gifts. Now, you may already be doing something. Whatever you're doing, we don't do away with what you're doing. We just come alongside and try to help make it better, complement what you're doing. And then the last slide is two words that I think are very important, the word from and the word for. We're going to be asking something from our people. We do it all the time, and we're going to keep doing it, because if our people don't give, then we're not going to be able to have the ministry that we have. But here is the opportunity to have something for your people. And this is why it works. It really works. What you would do is you would literally hire us. We would partner with your church, and your church would offer to your people, free of charge to them, the services of PhilanthroCorp. And just like Ross said, we would go through this. We would help them have the very best estate plan they could have. It's not cookie cutter. We're not not trying to just mark out a few things and make everybody look the same. No, every family has unique needs, just like I said of mine. Mine had very unique needs. And one of the reasons for those was because when we started raising our grandson, that caused us some problems in our family that we did not foresee. And it was simply this: I had 3 granddaughters that wanted to know why the grandson got to stay with us all the time. And so our grandson literally became our son, and that caused some problems. So how do we handle these things? And we work with you to make sure, but it's a gift that you're going to be giving to your people. Now, what will your people pay? Well, it's whatever state you live in. We have attorneys in all states. They work for us. And the only thing your people would pay is for an attorney to file the estate plan that is prepared by PhilanthroCorp. Now, what that means is it's just a token. It's a very small amount that they would pay, because PhilanthroCorp has done all the work. And the fact that PhilanthroCorp the church pays PhilanthroCorp to do all the work, that takes the procrastination that's been on them for so long. That takes that away, and they get this done, and they come back, just like I said, very, very grateful for what we've done. And so we're now having something for them. And the process that we use, it works. There's others out there doing it. No one has the average return on investment of 40 to 1 like us. No one is getting the average gift of $200,000 like we are. And we're just taking thousands of people through this process because it is a gift from the church to their people. And like I said, the only thing they pay for is the attorney to file it. And I wanted to tell one little story in closing. One of the books that I would recommend is the book Not Your Parents' Offering Plate by J. Cliff Christopher. And J. Cliff Christopher tells a story in the little book of how that as a pastor, he had been at a church for a couple of years. The church had grown greatly. They needed to build a new building, and they started a building program. The elders in the church said to him, "You need to go talk to this widow in the church. Her husband has left her with millions of dollars." And so he goes to talk to her, and he begins a conversation by saying, "The elders told me that your husband left you with millions of dollars." And she said, "That's correct." He said, "I know that's a terrible, terrible burden to know. How do you handle millions of dollars? What do you do with it? How do you make sure that you use it correctly?" And she said, "Oh, Pastor, you won't know how terrible that burden is." And before he could say another word, she said, "But Pastor, I want you to know I no longer have that burden." And he said, "Oh, okay, tell me." And she said, "The president of the local university here in town came by just a few weeks ago and showed me how that I could give millions of dollars to the university to go toward educating young people. And Pastor, I don't have that burden anymore." And J. Cliff Christopher said when he walked out the door that day, he said, she had all that money there. She loved her church. She would have given all kinds of money for her church, but I was too late in asking. And so let me encourage you. I know some of you are just on staff and you've got to take it to the powers that be, but I promise you, start today. It's never too late to start planning for legacy giving. I've told lots of people, if I would have known this 10 years before retirement, I would have left our church with probably $20 to $30 million in legacy gifts. And there's a lot of you, your churches are much, much larger than the church I pastored. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that can go to the Lord's work. And we don't want to miss that. That's very, very important. Okay. Now you have the slide there that says you can contact me. You have my email address, doug.ripley@plangift.com, or my cell phone at 256-303-0603. And what we will do is we will begin the process of working with you and your leadership to see whether or not the Lord is in a partnership with PhilanthroCorp. And we would sure love to come alongside and help you. Okay, any questions that you might have? And I'll turn this over to Ross just to handle the questions, and I'll try to answer them.
That sounds good. So if you have any questions, use the Q&A at the bottom middle of your screen. You should see it. So Doug, as I hear you talk, there are a couple things that I think about. One was, I mean, not super related, but I just listened to the book about Bono, the lead singer for U2. And he was just on the brink of making a lot of money. And he went to his pastor and he said, Pastor, just imagine how I could provide for the church. And his pastor looked at him and kind of laughed. And he said, you think it's you that's going to provide for the church? Yeah. Like, it's such a great reminder. And as it relates to this conversation, I think of Proverbs 21:31, which is something like, we make the horse ready for battle, but victory is the Lord's. And so while we shouldn't be prideful in thinking that we're providing, or that that our members are providing, we do have an obligation to make the horse ready for battle.
Right.
But count on victory for the Lord. There are a few questions that popped in, and you actually have answered most of them around success rates. What is your success rate with churches? Is there any more that you would want to share or elaborate on as it relates to PhilanthroCorp's success rate?
Well, I just want to say to you that our average ROI right now is 40 to 1. And you can do the math on that. And just think about it. If those of you that are on the webinar right now, you said you went back to your leadership and you said, if we invested just a few $1,000s a month into this, it would be incredible, the monies that we would have for future growth. And I don't want to point out any quote church, but a lot of times we run into a church maybe that goes through a $50 million building program. And you say, how in the world could they do a $50 million program? Well, if you know what I know about some of those churches, their pastors started doing legacy giving for their church 20 years prior to that building program. And most of that 50 million was monies that had been left in legacy gifts, and these pastors were cutting edge, and they were thinking of the future, not just making budget today, but thinking of the future. And it's just important to understand when you make that investment that this is going to come back. And I do want to say this to you. The only way we would not reach our average of 40 to 1 ROI would simply be if you guys don't allow us to do what we do best. In other words, we talk about mailings and things that you're having special occasions, making sure that you put this before your people. If you'll follow our lead, it's there. It's there. And Ross, is just like what you talked about there from the Proverbs. When we realize God owns it all, and we realize that 91% belongs to the Lord, it's just natural that we give it. We want to give back to the Lord, from that. And just like what you said with you and your wife, there is such a wonderful feeling. Let me give you a personal testimony. My wife and I, when we started pastoring, our first church had 14 people. I graduated from seminary and took a church of 14 people. They offered to pay us $100 a week if it came in. I had people tell me, "You're crazy." I mean, you're crazy. Why in the world would you go there? Why would you do that? My dad, who I had the privilege of leading to Christ after I became a Christian, my dad said to me, he said, "Doug, if God's leading you, you better go." And we went there. I mean, we went into poverty. I mean, we went from $1,000 a month income with every benefit you could imagine. And now this was back in 1973. And we had about $1,200 a month with everything you could imagine. And we went from that to $400 a month if it comes in. And I started at that time, I started giving back 20%, not 10, 20. Now, I don't want to sound spiritual. We couldn't live off of $90, and I needed a miracle. And I want you to know, God gave the miracle. And so there's a lot of people just like us that love to give. They just need to have the opportunity of somebody showing them that they can give through this estate. And right now, my wife and I, we did our will back, and it's 5.5 years ago when we took our church through. I'm redoing it now, and I'm doing a charitable remainder trust and everything. My children and grandchildren, my daughter and grandchildren will enjoy for 20 years. And I added an extra grandchild in my giving on that. But at the end of 20 years, every bit of it will go to the Lord's work. God's people just want to give. I just didn't know that opportunity was available.
That's great. So the next question, I might take a stab at it as somebody who went through the process as if I were a member of your church. And then I'll let you kind of course correct me or supplement. But the question is a great one. It's why is there such an emphasis on avoiding taxes when the Bible says, "Render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God the things that are of God"? I love that verse. And I would say for me personally, I draw the line at doing 100% of, I file my taxes. I don't cut corners. I report what I need to report, but I don't want to send money that I don't need to. So for me, what that looked like is my 401k, a big chunk was in Roth and a big chunk was in not Roth, whatever that is. Well, I'm going to have to pay taxes on this when we die. So this is the piece that I'm going to give to charity because I don't need to necessarily pay taxes on it if it's a gift, because that's a legal thing that the government encourages us to do to support charities, and it's legal and it's within the law. And so I feel like it's not trying to skirt a responsibility. It's trying to be a good steward and make your money go as far as it will go. That's how we approached it. Any guidance on that?
Well, let me just say to you that I think America is one of the greatest countries. Oh, well, I think it's the greatest country in the world. And I've been to many, many countries. And America is very generous. Our tax laws are they're written to bless people that are very generous. There's so many things that are done today in our country that are good, that could not be done without the generosity of people. And so what we do is, it's not like we're just trying to take away from the government. I think we're all giving them plenty, and I think if we would just be, our biggest criticism is not that we're not giving them enough. It's just, are they spending it wisely? But reality is that we have the laws today that if we will use generosity, especially for charity, then the tax laws are in our favor because they want us to be generous. Because these charities that we're talking about, our church didn't get money from the government. I think the church is listening right now that, the government's not going to be taking care of you the next 20 and 30 years. But if we give accordingly and stay within those laws that bless generosity, that's what really makes it work.
Right. Well, that's great. I heard you talked about getting started. Your contact information is here. I would add to that for our partner churches, if it would be helpful to have somebody outside, not under the PhilanthroCorp umbrella, to say, what was your experience? I'd be happy to grab a Zoom with anybody on your staff that would want to kind of kick the tires and ask questions. Obviously, Doug is a great resource, and he's surrounded himself with a team of people that served me incredibly well. I know that I believe and trust that you would be really well served, even just exploring. The difficult part is you're building a foundation. We so often look for immediate gratification. This has a long-term value, and it's going to provide a lot with long-term benefits. So, Doug, any thoughts in closing as we wrap?
Yes, let me just share one thing that's very, very important. As a senior pastor, you carry the financial load of the church. It's incredible, the burden a senior pastor carries. And sometimes when a church is in a building program, the senior pastor says, "Oh no, we don't want to do anything that would hinder the success." But reality is, legacy giving can go on 12 months out of the year. It's done behind the scenes. This is money that people are going to give when they no longer need it. They're going to give it when they die. And you're helping your people. When you think about the need and helping your people, how many families have we watched down through the years that the church, they were actively involved in it, and then all of a sudden somebody dies, the family's torn apart. It's just terrible what can happen. So you're going to bless your people, but you can do this while doing a building fund. You can do this while doing your mission emphasis, because this is not money that's going to take away. But one thing that is important to understand, studies already showed that if I will put my church or whatever ministry I want to give to, if I will put them in my estate plan, that I will increase the current gifts that I'm giving right now. Some say that some will increase as much as 50%. But if they just increase 5% or 8% or 10%, but the increase comes, and the reason for that is because it's biblical. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And so when they start putting their treasure into the ministry through legacy giving, boy, they have a heart for it greater than ever before. So we can help them. If they will contact me, we'll walk them through whatever fits for them. There's no cookie cutters. The church doesn't have to be a certain size. We can work with the smaller church. We can work with the larger church, and we will help them make sure that we are able to offer to them in a way that they financially can afford it. And we just want to be a blessing. And we're a Christian organization working with Christians. And so that's what we want to do.
Doug, thank you for your service to the church. Thanks for the good work that you and PhilanthroCorp do. So we're grateful for your partnership. I also want to say thank you to Haley Whitworth, who is behind the scenes. Thank you, Haley, for all the work you did to make this a success, for serving us in the way that you do behind the scenes on these. And to our partner churches, thanks for sticking around. We had really great attendance all the way through. So thanks for your partnership. If there's anything that Doug or I can do to help you along this journey, our prayer is that we do things that encourage just the sustainability, the growth, the name of the Lord. So have a great afternoon. We're grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.